Welcome, chat, to another Healthy Gamer GG stream. My name is Alok Kanoja. Just a reminder that although I am a psychiatrist, nothing we discuss on stream today is intended to be taken as medical advice. Everything is for educational or entertainment purposes only. If y'all have a medical question or concern, please go see a licensed professional. Happy Friday, everybody. I am thrilled because I've gotten to stream 3 days today, which is a blast. Seriously, this is like some of the best times of my week, some of the best part of my job. I think I'm really lucky to be able to like stream for a living. That's great. How are y'all doing today? 3-day streak. Let's go. Yeah. So I think, unfortunately we're like kind of bouncing around here at HG. We're doing a lot of stuff. We're trying to build stuff to help y'all. And it turns out that y'all need like different kinds of things for help. And so some people really like the interviews. Some people really like the lectures. Some people really like sort of short form kind of content more on YouTube, like a 20-minute lecture on stuff. And so what we've actually managed to do is build like a new thing that we just launched a couple months ago, which is resource packs. So resource packs are collections of high impact content that we've done in the past. We've been streaming now for like 3 to 4 years. We've got like over 900 videos on our YouTube channel, and there's a lot of good stuff in there. The challenge is that if you have a problem, it's hard to figure out how to approach it. So resource packs are kind of like a good opportunity for us to take common topics that people are interested in getting help with, and we sort of assemble the highest quality content that we have done in the past around this stuff. And then we've also layered in additional like exercises, worksheets, things like that, like key takeaway points. And then y'all can kind of run through them. So a couple of other things, resource packs are on topics like motivation, right? So if you're struggling with motivation, like which Dr. K stream do you want to watch? Well, we talk with this viewer on this stream, and we sort of like tackle motivation in this way. And then we've got a video over here that talks about sleep and motivation. We've got a video about finding your purpose. We've got a video about behavioral activation. We've got all kinds of stuff about science, spirituality, neuroscience, psychology, clinical psychiatry. And we try to stitch them all together so that y'all kind of have a one-stop shop so you can get lots of different perspectives on motivation. Our most successful resource pack is actually the one that we launched just recently, which is on communication and relationships. So it's like, Dr. K, can you do a stream on communication and relationships? Yes, I have done many of them in the past. And rather than repeating the same content over and over and over again, the cool thing is that we can take lots of different perspectives on communication and relationships, and we can kind of stitch them together for y'all. So another cool thing is that the resource packs for the large part are free. There's some videos from Dr. K's guide, which you have to have purchased Dr. K's guide to access. But I think those are less than like 20%. And that's just like hey, there's a really good video about it. So, if you've gotten the guide, it kind of stitches in. So it kind of integrates across our different, like where we live. So there's a guide, there's YouTube, there's all kinds of stuff. If y'all... And so one last thing is that the resource packs are free, and we are grateful to everyone who supports us, because when y'all give us money, we turn it into things like this. I don't know if I have let me see if I can screen share with y'all so you can actually see a resource pack. Yeah, I can't find the link right now, which is, here, let's try this. Oh, no, I'm not logging into Twitch. Can somebody click resources? Oh, here we go. Let me go to this link. So here is an example. So let me just screen share with y'all real quick, and then we're going to hop into the interview, okay? So here's what resource packs look like, right? So I have gone through... I've gone through 7% of the motivation resource pack, but there's stuff like confidence, dating, relationships, life purpose, communication, social media and internet use, right? So like this is an example. There's 14 different things that we've uploaded. These could be streams, whatever. There are 40 insights and 16 reflections, and there's 2 guide videos. Most underrated content. This used to be our most successful resource pack. But so for example, some of these will have like motivation, like, oh, this is more in the guide because we've covered this. We have a whole guide to motivation. so if y'all are interested in that, check out our guide to ADHD and doing stuff, where we really dive into a lot of different neuroscience, psychological, psychiatric, and y'all may be wondering what's the difference there, spiritual perspectives on how to do stuff. So this is everything from kind of the science of habit formation to understanding how to break addictions. So that's all related to motivation. So it really just depends on the resource pack. And let's do dating and relationships, right? So we've got, so this is just a lot of stuff about dating, right? So what's going on with single, lonely men? How do you understand negative emotions? How do you work with things that hold you back in dating? And then we talk about texting and ghosting, being an adult virgin, dating advice, how porn consumption affects your brain, talking to someone who spent a bunch of money on dating coaches, what's the deal with that? How to date someone with ADHD, how to date someone with BPD, how ADHD affects your relationships. And the cool thing about this resource pack is that this may sound like a lot of random things, but over the course of this resource pack, because what we do is I'm going to explain some neuroscience here. I'm going to explain some neuroscience here. So if y'all go through this whole resource pack, y'all are actually going to get a collection of lots of different perspectives around dating, and some of that stuff will be absolutely applicable to you. Does that make sense? Okay, so definitely check out resource packs. They're pretty lit. IMO. Also built in part by the community. So we built these because we asked y'all, what do y'all need help with? And then y'all said, this is what we need help with. And that's how we sort of selected stuff. We also have a ton of people on Discord and stuff who have helped us sort of select those videos. So thank you all very much to everyone who's done that. And I see that some people have tipped us. Thank you very much for the tips. All the subs, tips, donations, etc. will go to fund these kinds of resources. And it's our way of giving back. You give to us, we will manufacture something with it. So thank you all very very much. All right, let's hop into our interview and talk a little bit about weed usage. Hello. Okay, give me 1 second, my dude. Let me just make sure that this works, because sometimes, yeah. So we got to do this. Nope. One second. I got to do this every single time because I'm scuffed. Okay, we're good. Count to 10 for me.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Perfect.
5. Cool. 7.
Hello, my friend.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm good. I had my final exams today for my classes, and then this, and then I'm free for the rest of the day.
Awesome. And got any plans for later today?
None at all.
Okay, awesome. And what do you go by?
I go by Rogan mainly. That's just my name.
Okay, nice to meet you, Rogan.
Nice to meet you too.
People call me Alok or Dr. K, whatever you prefer.
All right.
And what are we talking about today, Rogan?
Marijuana usage.
Okay.
General I don't know what it's been, but recently, it's I'm I have people around me, but I still feel alone in a way. You know? And then just general maybe probably some confidence type stuff.
Okay, sure. And so just to clarify, so I know that sometimes people will have a marijuana addiction, and that sometimes people who have a marijuana addiction will engage in psychiatric treatment. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, that I'm not going to be diagnosing you or treating you with anything today. And we're just going to talk about marijuana usage and how it interfaces with your life, your confidence, whatever, right? So we're just having a conversation. We clear on that?
Yes.
Okay. If you're interested in mental health resources, just DM me after we're done today, and we're happy to send along some stuff if you decide that you want to pursue something. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. So talk to me about marijuana, dude.
So I actually haven't been doing it for that long. So I moved up to Canada for schooling, from the southern half of the states, and then when I turned 19, it's like, okay, cool, I can get all this stuff legally now. So it's like, why not try it? So I tried it, and then I did it the next day, and then a few days later did it again, and then it just became more often.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now it's I'm doing it every day, but I'm managing to keep it within like times where I know I'm not doing anything and don't have any responsibilities going on.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really just become a thing when I start to get a little overwhelmed, it's like, okay, let me have a little bit, see if I can unwind.
Okay. So I'm hearing that. Is it okay if I ask you some questions about that?
Yes.
So you said you moved to Canada, and you moved to Canada for school. It sounds like?
Yes.
And what are you studying, if you don't mind me? You don't have to answer any of these if this.
Audio.
Okay. What does that mean?
Like live sound, recording in a studio, TV and movie audio.
Okay. I noticed that it seems like you have some instruments behind you, and you have a Metallica T-shirt.
Yes.
And so, is there a particular genre of audio that you partake in or enjoy?
Well, for like different industries, I would say like concerts and live sound. For music genres, metal is definitely what I gravitate towards. But I listen to like a little bit of everything, not a whole lot of everything. Like I won't get too deep into country or rap, but there's a few songs.
Okay. And what are some of your favorite metal bands?
Metallica, Avenged Sevenfold, Gojira. I saw them recently. That was pretty cool. Those are probably the big ones at the moment.
And favorite Metallica songs?
My favorite Metallica song of all time, which is my favorite song of all time, is One.
Yeah, One is fantastic, dude.
Oh yeah, it was one of the first songs I tried to learn on guitar, and I made a big mistake by trying that early.
So it sounds like you play guitar.
Yes.
And any other instruments?
A little bit of bass. I did piano for 2 months. But that was only because my mom wanted me to.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really all. That's all I play.
Okay. And so when you do like sound work, like in the stuff that you're studying, so that's what does that entail? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So when it comes to like studio recordings, it's like learning proper techniques for setting up microphones, how to make sure everything is at a proper level, edit different takes, like put on effects and different things. And then for live sound, it's like more microphone placement. It's learning how to like take out certain frequencies in a room if there's like a feedback loop or anything, or if there's just any general resonance. And then for like movies, it's like, okay, here's like how loud things can be at certain times here, and like learning how to edit sound effects and sound design.
It sounds super cool. It sounds like very like complex, like a mixture of kind of science and calculation, and also
it's really mostly feel that I find. It's like okay, this sounds right. Let me double check it.
Okay, that's cool, man. And how are you liking your how far along are you in college?
So it's only a 1 year long program. It's
Okay.
more like a trade school type thing.
Okay.
And I just finished my final exams this morning, and graduation's next Friday.
Wow, dude, congratulations.
Thank you.
How do you feel about that?
It's like I feel like I'm not ready to graduate, but it's also like I want to go home and just not have to do things for a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds have you been kind of pushing yourself?
Towards the beginning, definitely like in the beginning of the program, I was definitely a lot more motivated. And then as the second and third term started, it's like, it's like I was just getting tired.
Okay. So more motivated at the beginning and getting tired.
Yes.
And so it sounds like you've been in Canada for about a year.
Yes.
And it sounds like you first used marijuana. I'm assuming that you started in the fall.
Yeah. About like November, December.
Okay. So and that's when you first started using marijuana, when you tried it?
Yes. Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about what was in your head when you tried it for the first time?
So when I first tried it, I was with one of my housemates out back, and it's like, I took at that time we were just using his bong, and it's like first hit, it's like 30 minutes go by, nothing happens. Second, nothing happens. Third, and then 15 minutes after, it all hits you. Uh, but it's like that first time, it's like it was fun. It was really fun. It was because it was something I had never experienced before.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like it was just like, whoa, this is cool. It's kind of satisfying that curiosity.
Okay. And what was when you say it hits you? What does that feel like?
Well, when it hit me, it's like everything zoomed. Like at least from what I felt, it felt like everything just kind of zoomed out just a little bit,
Hmm. Okay.
and then and like my face muscles just kind of got tighter, and
Okay.
that was really that's what I felt personally.
Okay.
I've had a lot of people have different reactions.
And what was fun about it?
I guess the most fun thing was just kind of like the sort of relaxing feeling it brought, and it's like it just you just kind of sit down and let it take over.
And what does it
And
do
then,
when it takes over?
well, I often just end up sitting down and like listening to music, and I'll like notice more in the music that like say I didn't notice before, or it just feels different to listen to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it's very common for people to find that sensory experiences are far richer when they're high. Would you say that that's the case with you?
Yes, in both good and bad ways.
How so?
So like the good ways, of course, was like music, movies, any sort of stuff like that. And but what I found recently is it kind of like amplifies whatever feeling I had before.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, oh, I'm having a shitty day. Let me see if this helps, and then like it'll help for like 15 minutes, and after that, it's like I feel worse.
Okay. So it sounds like it does help temporarily, but then, like you're saying, it kind of amplifies. So if you're in a bad space, it makes you go into a worse space?
For me, it does. A lot of people, some people, it doesn't. I have a lot of people who, I know people who will go into it in like the worst mind state, but feel amazing the entire time.
Okay.
I don't know if that's something with like different strains or just like body compositions or what, but
Yeah, it seems to some people it kind of takes away the negativity, but for you it seems to enhance it.
now it does. Yes, it used to not.
And what did it used to do?
But it used to just, like I used to just not, think about anything while I was high. It's like, I would get high, brain would shut off, and just like, just do things.
Can you tell me about that?
So, like I remember like just like hanging out downstairs with my housemates, just having weird conversations, but it's entertaining because like you're thinking about like it's like you're thinking, but you're not thinking about anything except for what is happening right then presently.
Okay, so it sort of really helps you be kind of absorbed in the present moment.
It helps me with that, yeah.
And what does it feel like to be absorbed in the present moment?
It it feels it feels good because it's like I don't it's like I tend to I dwell on things for a while, especially with like things that happened in the past. It's like
Mm-hmm.
it's like I'll just be hanging out and then all of a sudden it'll pop into my head and I'm like, damn, I thought I forgot that by now.
Hmm. Okay, so you find that things from the past kind of come into your mind and disrupt your ability to be in the present?
Yes.
Okay. And so it seems like marijuana used to kind of make that go away.
Yes.
And then so you used it once. What happened the next day?
The next day, it's like I felt fine. Like I woke up expecting to kind of feel weird, like almost like a weird like hangover type thing. I thought would happen, but I woke up, felt fine, and I was like, huh. I guess I was like, huh, no consequences.
And so then did you use again?
The next day I did, yeah, and then I took a few days break,
And
and then
then
just started doing
and
it
what
again.
was like the first, let's say, week or month of use like for you?
So the first week or month of use, it was really just I would mainly do it just on like Fridays, Saturdays. I wouldn't do it on like school nights because I'm like just in case anything happens, I don't want to
Mhm.
uh miss anything. But then as we got into like the further terms, it's a Tuesday. It's like 4 o'clock. I'll be fine by the time I go to bed.
Okay.
You know, um, it like it's really in that first few. Sorry, I'm just trying to find my words, and it's just a lot of nerves. Um, the first like week month, it was really just very fun. It was a lot of fun conversations with friends and experiencing old things in a new way.
Okay. So when you said, it's a Tuesday, can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah, yeah.
What's your understanding of what's happening in your mind there?
My understanding is it's like, well, it's like yeah, we're in the middle of the week. I got stuff to do tomorrow, but I should be fine to do it. It's that whole thing of yeah, I can do both of these things.
Okay. So I'm sort of reading into this, and let me know if this is accurate, okay? And if there's anything that I can do to help you be less nervous, please let me know. And also, like, we can stop at any time. You can just disconnect the
Yeah.
Discord call and leave us hanging.
Yeah.
It's totally fine, dude.
Yeah, yeah.
I really appreciate you talking to us about this. So what I'm sort of noticing is that, okay, so originally it was like Fridays and Saturdays, right? Because like
Yes.
there's the work week, and then we're
there's-
gonna
and
like
there's
party
party,
on the
yeah.
weekends, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
a time for fun, and there's a time for work. And also you kind of are aware that marijuana potentially, this is a hotly debated topic, interferes with your capacity to do work. Right? And so I'm noticing that you kind of thought, well, I shouldn't use during the week. Did you used to think that way?
Yes.
And then your mind started to say, like, well, I think I can kind of get away with it.
Yes.
Right? So there won't be negative. As you got more familiar with it, you started to understand, like, how it affects you, like, what you can kind of, like, it won't impair you the next day.
Yes.
It seemed like it was more okay. But do you have a sense of why you wanted to do it on a Tuesday?
I guess it was like it was like I'm bored and I can't figure out what to do, so I'm gonna get high and then see if I find something to do.
Okay. And when you get high, what happens to boredom?
Well, it often sits in the like in the back. It's like it's not totally gone. Like I certainly get very bored, but it tends to take a back seat to like just like whatever I'm looking at or staring at. 'Cause like sometimes I'll find myself entertained by just staring at a tree branch outside.
So it seems like it takes away boredom.
Yes.
Would you say that marijuana is an antidote to boredom?
I wouldn't say I have enough experience with a lot with different things to say for sure that it is.
What do you
Because I like in my personal experience, it tends to help a lot of the time.
Okay.
It's more like a suppressant than an antidote in a way.
Okay.
Because once you come down, it's back, and then sometimes while you're still high, it's like, I don't know what to do anymore, and you just kind of end up sitting there trying to think.
Okay. And so you kind of, so you said the first month, you started to use maybe a little bit more regularly. You were having, it sounds like, a lot of fun. You were like having cool conversations. You're staring at tree branches. You're listening to music.
Yeah.
Anything else kind of come to your mind that you think it would be, that you feel like sharing, or that you think that people would be interested in knowing about kind of the early phase of your using?
I mean, it was very easy to do too much in the beginning.
Okay.
Like because I remember there was one night where I had way too much and I was just on the kitchen floor curled up. I could not move.
What
Yeah.
what was that like?
It kind of like I didn't mind it, but it still kind of sucked because I couldn't get off the floor.
That sounds scary.
But I mean, my friends were like at the kitchen table, so I wasn't just there.
And what made it hard for you to get off the kitchen floor?
I don't know. That's the thing. It's like I'm gonna lay down, and then I laid down, and I was like, okay, it's time to get up. and then I start trying to get up, and I'm like, don't know if I can.
Huh. So do you have a sense of what was going on, or you just kind of remember that piece and the rest of it's sort of foggy?
I just kind of remember that. That's really it.
Okay. Um, and what do you think about that?
I mean, I definitely learned to not overdo it, and I kind of learned like, okay, you do gotta be a little, you gotta be careful. It good, like it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun for sure to be there, but you know, it was a learning experience.
Was it unpleasant?
Um, it what like I would say it was a mix of like unpleasant and pleasant, because pleasant because like I'm looking around at where I'm living, and I'm like, huh, I never noticed that pattern right there before.
Okay.
But then sometimes, depending on like what you took, like that night I had taken edibles. Like I also had a pretty bad stomach ache when I was on the ground.
Okay. Um,
Um,
and then okay. So it sounds like it was sort of scary and too much, but not necessarily unpleasant.
yes,
And it sounds like you got more proficient at using, learned your
yes,
limits.
yes.
And
I was like, okay, never again that much.
okay. And so what else has changed kind of over time? So we kind of talked a little bit about early use. You kind of learned a couple lessons, and then what happened after that?
Then it started to just become more regular, and it started to feel like when I was high, I felt more normal than compared to when not.
Can you tell us about that?
So like before having come up to Canada, I had never done any sort of drugs at all before, anything. But and then like at first it felt weird, like whoa, this isn't how I normally act. This is pretty fun. Then eventually it's like you stop getting that sort of like burst of energy almost, and you just kind of end up just like smoking, and then you sit there and keep doing what you were doing before.
Hmm. And so when you say it feels normal, did you feel abnormal when you were not high?
Um, I wouldn't say I felt abnormal, but sometimes I would get more stressed over things that were that I would consider small.
When you were sober, you mean?
Yes.
And so you mentioned earlier that sometimes you would feel overwhelmed, or you would start to get overwhelmed and then you would start to use marijuana. Is that what
Mhm.
you're referring to?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that? Like what is that experience like?
So like I'll use an example. So for one of my final projects, I had to like design and put on a show. Um, and the first time I went through it, the video did not record and the live stream of it did not go live. So like afterwards, I was trying to figure out how like rescheduling it. I was super stressed because I'm like, okay, this is my project. I could flunk out because of this. And it's just that sort of overthinking and getting too into what could go wrong.
Okay.
And then it's like, okay, I need to slow down. I need to just I need to put everything at a manageable pace. So like I'll go just smoke a little bit, and then come back inside, sit down, breathe, let it take effect, and then resume whatever I was doing.
So did you find that it actually like helped you like focus on your work and not feel overwhelmed and stuff like that?
I would say it helped me kind of just it helped me focus on it. Um, but I wouldn't say that it exactly helped get the work done.
Help us understand that a little bit.
So it's like I started so when it kicked in, I was going through schedules. I was trying to figure out when everybody was available to redo it, when I could get into that studio to redo it again. And like beforehand, I had been constantly talking to people and trying to figure out, hey, can I get this time? Can I get you guys this time? But afterwards, I kind of I stopped with the phone calls and I was like, okay, I'm gonna sit down. I'm going to think about what I'm going to say, and then and then like it improved my at least a bit of my communication for me. But the quality of at least my understanding of what I was doing kind of went down. Like it was almost like an autopilot type thing. It's like I started going and I stopped thinking.
So what I'm hearing is that it may not have actually improved your performance, but it made it easier for you to do, like, internally,
Yes.
right? So it's like you're not stressing as much. You're kind of chill about it, but you may be like slightly disorganized. You're kind of like you're able to focus on one thing, but it's not necessarily. So it's helping you kind of internally do the work, but it's not
Yes.
actually helping the work itself.
Yes.
Okay. And so what it sounded like you started using it every day at some point.
Yes.
And tell us about that.
So when I started using it every day, it's like I would wake up, go to class, then come back, and I'm like, okay, cool. I don't have anything to do for the next 3-4 hours. Let's smoke. I'll come down by the time I have to do anything. And then that became every day, and it just started to kind of almost lose that magic it had. But it's like, but at some point you're like, well, why not?
Yeah. So it sort of becomes an activity that you sort of use to fill gaps in your day
Yes.
and it lost the magic. Do you have a sense of why you kept doing it if it wasn't?
I guess it was sort of just to get that like almost I guess like a placebo effect maybe just kind of be like okay if I use it I'll feel better.
And were you feeling bad?
Um well I would probably say that like this past year even though like I've had people around me and I've been social, I would say I've probably never felt lonelier.
Tell us about that.
This is the first year I've been living away from family.
Okay.
Had never really been away for too long, and I'm in Canada. They're on the other side of the states, and it's that distance and just kind of almost feeling like I don't have that safety net. It's like it feels almost like whatever I do, it's like what could go wrong from here that could screw me up and I can't come back from because I don't have that safety net. It's like almost like more paranoid. It's because it's like I don't these people aren't here right behind me. What's gonna happen?
And is there some reason that you're afraid that something is going to happen? Has something happened to you before?
I wouldn't say no. Like I haven't had anything like horrible happen. It's really just it's something new that I that like because thing is so I didn't take a gap year or anything between high school and now. I went straight in. And it's like a lot of the people that I know here and even like friends back home like when they're going to school they're generally close to family so they can go home on the weekends they can go see their mom go get a nice home cooked meal. I got for this past year I got to see my parents maybe 3 to 4 months like a few days every 3 to 4 months, which it was nice.
Do you miss
But
them?
I would say that yeah, I for sure miss my parents. I miss just being able come home. Somebody's there, asks me how my day was doing. Like I come home now, and it's just kind of I go walk through living room, go to my room, silence.
What's that like?
It's at some point you get used to it, but you never start to like it.
It sounds like at home you have people who care about you.
Yes.
What's it like to not have people who care about you?
Well, it's like I have people who do care about me. It is more that when I like the family's always there when I need them. Like my parents are always there when I need them if I ever need to text them or call them. It's like coming to where I'm calling home. and not, if I need somebody, the closest they're gonna be is 1,500 miles away.
Wow.
And it's like it's like that physical support isn't there.
So when you say physical support, what is it that you are missing?
Um, like sitting down with like having general time, just bonding time with family and stuff. Kind of like even just like sitting down watching a movie I've seen 100 times. It's a lot better when there's family or somebody there.
How does it feel to talk about this stuff?
Um, it's emotional, definitely. Um, it's liberating a little bit. But then it's also hard because I haven't talked about this stuff before.
What makes it hard?
Um, just it's really more of well, like growing up, I was given that sort of like bottle it up, and then just let it out when you're alone. Um, it's I don't find myself talking about my mental health and emotions a whole lot at all.
What makes that hard for you?
I The fact that like I don't know how to do it too like I don't really know how to communicate too clearly about it, and then when I get nervous with things, like sometimes I'll start to stutter, and then that just starts to loop and it gets worse. um the hardest part is probably just that vulnerability, because it's like my like I've been taught, you got to be strong, you've got to be the one that's there for others. um but I never really gave anybody the opportunity to be like I kind of just closed off my more vulnerable emotions. And when I was younger, like that was sort of manifest as anger. Like I like when I was like in fifth, sixth grade, I had horrible anger issues. But it really just spawned from all of the emotion is not coming out.
Are you okay sharing some of that? I'm really curious about
Yeah,
understanding. I'd like to understand that part of you.
yeah.
What was going on in the fifth and sixth grade?
Um, so fifth grade is when I had started being bullied for my weight, um, and my height. I was one of the shorter kids, and I was not exactly the skinniest kid. Um, and just kind of small teases like that. And like I had my two friends, I had my two buddies, but neither of them were in the same class with me. So it's like as soon as recess would end, go into class, it's just me. Um, and and at some point I had I had retaliated, and I got in trouble for retaliating, even though I had been being bullied for months at that point. Um,
What would they do to you, and what did you do to them?
so they would mainly tease about, like height, weight, just like general physical things. Just things kids would tease each other about. And and like at some point, they they kept pushing me and pushed me, like not, like pushing me mentally. And then I turned around and I pushed them physically, like I pushed them. 'Cause, I was just so pissed at that point that it's like, what else do I do? Physical. And then I got in trouble, and none of the kids who had done anything beforehand for those months had gotten any sort of punishment, anything at all. And that is sort of kind of cemented. Okay, cool. Even if I do help myself, I'm going to end up in a position I don't want to be.
Yeah, that's tough, dude. Like, you can't say to your teachers when you're in the fifth grade, hey, these people are emotionally manipulative, and like, I can't defend myself against their
Yeah.
words. I struggle with stuttering, I struggle with my emotions, and they're playing the game this way, and I can't defend myself. Like, especially if you're a boy in the 5th grade, admitting that you don't know how to defend yourself in a particular game is like one of the most shaming things that. And so what are you going to do? You're going to play a game that you at least have a chance of winning, but then you get punished for defending yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, this is something that bullies are very good at. They're very good at dominating you up until a line and then not crossing that line and manipulating you into crossing it so that you get punished for defending yourself. And the moment you get punished for defending yourself, that's when they've really won. And they're really good at that. Like, they know, how to push you to the point of like, and because, when you push them, how did you get in trouble? Like, what did that look like?
So I believe, so I don't remember like a lot of it because I had never been so angry that I don't remember something. But this was the only time I had ever been so pissed that I like almost kind of blacked out the memory. Like it was gym class, and it was kickball type stuff, and it started like I blew up over something petty, something completely petty. And it's like I wanted to be the catcher. The coach told me I could be the catcher, but then everybody behind me's chirping me and yelling at me. And then at some point, I'm like, okay, I'm tired of this. And I turn around and I push him into the wall. And that was like the last thing I remembered. And then I was in the principal's office.
What happened after that?
I don't remember a lot because it was a long time ago. I just I just remember being very emotional, and that was about it. And then I got in school suspension, so I was just kind of in a back room with a science book.
How does it feel to share this?
I mean, it's nice to be able to talk about these experiences with somebody who isn't gonna give me who probably isn't gonna give me the same answers I've heard hundreds and hundreds of times of just well, laugh it off, be funny, then they won't bully you. And that was how I dealt with it. Was I started trying to be funny, and then it started going into like self-deprecating humor, and it's like okay, cool, I found it. If I make fun of myself, they can't make fun of me.
Yeah. It's really interesting, right? Kind of fucked up, actually, as I hear you talk about it. Like, when you're being bullied and people sort of say like, oh, this, like, they kind of put the,
it's like, hey, making fun of you is funny.
Yeah, they kind of put the they don't say, hey, what these people are doing is bad and they should change. They say, hey, this is your responsibility if you're a victim, and you need to change your behavior, and you need to be better, and no one's even kind of calling attention to the fact that like you're actually being bullied, right? They somehow make it your responsibility.
Yeah, it's kind of like they're fixing the symptom rather than the cause.
I don't even think they're fixing the symptom. I think really. I mean, because you're not the one who's at fault, right? Mm. So I think it's
at least in my mind I wasn't.
Yeah, and what kind of self-deprecating humor? What worked?
It was really it's like they would be like some sort of fat joke, and I'd be like, yeah, but if I sat on you, you couldn't breathe. It was just kind of stuff that would make fun of my weight, but then also be like, hey, I can make jokes too. It's like I'm like you. I can make jokes.
I noticed that you stuttered there.
Yes. When I think, when I start to think too much, and then when I start to think fast, like I'm trying to keep up with what I'm trying to say in my head, and then I just end up getting stuck.
How do you? Can I think for a second?
Yeah.
This is what I do when I think too fast. I just shut up.
I just keep talking.
I used to too, and I stutter a bit. I've said I like 14 times in the last 30 seconds, but let me just think. So there's a part of me that wants to move away from talking about anything that will induce your stuttering, because
The thing
I'm
is, I wouldn't say it's subject matter that induces the stuttering. It's just once I get really thinking about something, then I'm trying to say everything that I'm thinking.
I'm worried about making you feel ashamed if you start like stuttering in this conversation.
I've gotten used to my stutter when it comes to like shameful type stuff. It's like I don't really feel shame about it anymore. It's like, yeah, I have one.
Okay.
It's frustrating sometimes, but I've gotten used to it.
Yeah.
It just means I've got to stop and slow down a little bit.
Okay. Okay. I'm happy to hear that. I want to just be, I don't want to put you in a headspace that you're not happy being with.
Yeah, yeah.
It seems like it's going away.
Because it's when you're talking, like I get a second to like okay, it's my turn to shut up,
Okay.
listen, and then I can and then I'm thinking and getting ready for my response. It tends to be more when I get onto rambling and talking more and more that the stutter kind of gets closer and closer to coming.
And what is it that gets you rambling?
Well, it's once like once my brain makes a connection from this experience to that experience and this experience to this feeling, and then it's like, okay, I'm making these connections. I'm trying to get all these connections out and make sure that everything gets accounted for.
I see. So it really does sound like there's just literally more going on. So I'm noticing that in the past, like in our conversation, like we were kind of focused on one thing and you could kind of tunnel in, and I'm asking you specific questions about, what's it like to get high? And like, you're totally fine answering that. But now that we're kind of connecting, how do you feel in this moment with how you felt back then? And like telling a story, like there's just kind of, your RAM is starting to fill up.
It's like trying to remember and recall.
Yeah. While also speaking, while also analyzing, while also translating. That makes a lot of sense. And so you said that you used to be really angry at in 5th and 6th grade. What happened?
Well, it was just that whole like not having bottling up emotions and just not knowing how to process it properly, and not really knowing hey, if I go somewhere and I find something that I enjoy doing, it can help with that. I didn't really know that. It was really more of this confuses me. I don't like it. I'm angry.
And how did you learn how to process emotions? It sounds like that got better.
I started to when I would start to get angry, I would just I would take a deep breath and like, okay, this isn't worth getting angry over. Push it down. We'll let it out later. And it's like I got like an outlet cause, the summer after 6th grade I started playing guitar, and it's like I started getting an outlet in music for my emotions, and it's like I would listen to music to deal with my emotion. I would play guitar to deal with it, and that just kind of became zeroed in on how I would process things in life.
Wow, that's beautiful, dude.
Thank you.
When did you fall in love with metal?
So right after I had moved, so I moved after 6th grade, and so 7th grade is when I really started getting into metal. As a kid, I had played Guitar Hero 3 a lot, but my older brother, he always beat me. He still beats me to this day. But that game kind of introduced me to the world, like really threw me into the world of rock and roll and metal. And then when I had moved to, I moved to Florida at the time, and I sat across from a guy in homeroom, and he was wearing a metal T-shirt, and I was wearing a Metallica T-shirt, and we started talking, and then he started recommending bands, and then I was starting to go deeper and deeper and deeper into metal. And then next thing I know, I'm standing at a festival with my dad for 12 hours straight, and then we're going to see Metallica.
Wow, dude.
Yeah, I've had a very lucky life in terms of what I've been able to do in terms of like experiences. But like I owe it all to like really mostly my dad with music at least, because I remember when I was 4 or 5, my dad gifted me an iPod Shuffle. It was a little blue one, and he loaded it up with like Beatles, Van Halen, Guns N' Roses, all the stuff he listened to, and then the Devil Went Down to Georgia was also on there. And that's like the one country song I listen to like to this
It's a
day.
great song.
Yeah, and like that's where I started getting into music, and I'd be listening to that all the time. And then as life went on, I got more and more into music. And then once I got into high school, I started performing more. And then once I finished high school, the performances dropped off because I had to leave. Um, and then I've just been really practicing now and recording stuff.
Performing sounds scary.
Yeah, it is very. At least the first few times was the most scary.
Can you tell us about that?
Um, so the first time I had performed anything on a stage was like middle school musicals. The god awful hells that my parents had to sit through. Uh, I those middle school musicals. I remember my first one. It was Aladdin. I was Jafar because I was the only kid with a deep voice in middle school. They were like yeah, you. Um, but it was definitely nerve wracking because I didn't consider myself a singer or anything. I was like I don't sing. This is not what I do. Um, it was very nerve wracking like the first night, and I would stutter over my lines sometimes. But, then the next night it's like okay, just do the same thing as last night. And then once I got into high school, it started being more guitar centered performances, and I started going to like actual music school, like a like lessons.
Hmm.
Um, because prior to then, I had a few lessons with one of my dad's coworkers' son. He was like really good, and that was like my first few weeks of lessons, and then I moved away. And for the next 2 years, which was when I was in Florida, it was completely self-taught, and then I moved again, and I started getting actual lessons. And then the places I was going, they would do like recital type things. And like my first one, I remember being the last one to go on because they were like, yeah, least less people are probably gonna like this part because like I was like I want to play metal, I want to play a metal song. So they're like, okay, let's put the kids in the front, and then you're gonna be back here. I'm like, okay. It was definitely nerve wracking, but like once I got going with the music, it was really just I was focused on the music and what I was doing, and that's kind of what I learned to do. It's like I stopped thinking that there was people out there, and it was just like okay, this is me and these other people I'm on stage with, and it's just another song.
That sounds cool, man.
It was fun. It was very fun.
I'm amazed at how resilient you are. I mean, I imagine that stuff must be like pretty scary to like do and.
I mean, at some point you just get used to it. It's like
But
okay, I've done this before.
that I get, but what I think is actually pretty impressive, and like you seem like a strong dude because it's at some point you get used to it, but before you get used to it, kind of sucks. And it sounds
Oh
like you
yeah.
kind of like kept doing it even though it kind of sucked.
I mean, it's like doing it sucked, but then afterward, once you're done, it's like okay, I did it. I can go home now.
How did you feel about yourself?
Um, like whenever I would perform, if I performed like well enough to my like own standard, it's like yeah, I can go home, just thinking okay, I did it. I played the song. Nobody booed me as far as I heard. Success.
Yeah. Have you talked about other people with this? I mean, talk to other
About
people about this. Sorry, like just your
um
journey with music and.
I mean, I've with my school, they've done like things where sometimes we'll talk to like some of the teachers and they'll like ask us stuff and like music I've talked about a lot. Um, it's probably something I talk about more often than I do other things, just because it's something that it's one of the things that has been there even when somebody else can't be. Music has
Mm,
been there.
that's
Because
pretty cool.
it's like music isn't gonna like hang up on you or just not answer. You just press play and it's there. Like
Yeah,
it's unconditional in any way.
yeah. I've never thought about it that way, but that's really profound. And I'm kind of going back to speaking about it always being there. It sounds like over the last year you've been pretty lonely, even though you've been more social.
Yes.
Can you share a little bit more about that?
Um it's like I talk to a lot of people and I go out with my housemates. We go it's like parties, clubs and stuff. It's like I talk to people but I don't feel like but like I don't feel like there's anything actually being said, and there's no connections being made to anything. It is it like it's just okay. This is another pointless conversation that we're both gonna forget about, and we're never gonna see each other again. And it's like you're talking, but nobody's saying anything.
Hmm.
It's almost like the entire room, including yourselves, all just it's just NPCs running a script.
Wow. Yeah. And what do you think how does that happen? Why don't people end up saying anything even though they're talking?
I mean, it's because at least with like a party, it's okay, these people are strangers. I don't know a lot of these people, so it's like I'm not gonna open up to about anything to them. It's like okay, I'm gonna say what I know people generally talk about. It's almost like I'm guessing what the environment is gonna be like, and just kind of trying to figure it out.
So I'm noticing that you're training yourself to be an NPC.
Pretty much, it's like it's like you walk in and it's okay. Time so if somebody talks to me, I'm gonna say the same thing to each person because it's like okay, that greeting worked. Let me use that one again.
Okay, yeah. So y'all are in some sort of like AI communication incest fest where
Pretty much.
where it's like, okay, we're gonna use like increasingly generic stuff that engages. Okay, this increasingly generic response engages 15 people without causing any ruptures. So I'm gonna say this, and then other
Yes.
people are paying attention to you, and they're like, okay, this person is giving us some watered down, shallowed communication, and that seems to be working, and that's what everyone else is doing. So that's what I'm gonna do.
Pretty much.
And if you open up to someone that's like trauma dumping, it's weird, it's vulnerable, it's like people don't know what to do with
It's
that.
like well, it's something that at least in my life in my experiences, it's like if you go somewhere and you don't know somebody, you don't talk about that stuff. That's just kind of how like my sort of mentality has been. It's like okay, I don't know these people. They probably don't want to hear about this stuff, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And so even though you're more social, sounds like you're feeling very isolated.
Yes.
And I'm kind of curious, Rogan, are you do this is going to sound I'm trying to figure out how to say this without
Mhm.
it being weird, but I mean like so what about touch? Like when you were back home,
Mhm.
this I don't mean this in a bad way, but like did your parents like touch you? Did like
Like
hugs, handshakes,
uh my
like
mom my my
patting you
mom
on the
my
shoulder?
my mom likes hugs. My mom does like to hug people. That was always nice. It's like if I ever need one, she's there. And my dad and I just generally get along very well.
Yeah, your dad
And
seems amazing.
and yeah, and we both enjoy similar types of music, and we both. I remember when we went to that festival, we both saw the Foo Fighters for the first time there, and it was holy shit. You know, it's like having that shared experience.
Mm.
kind of brought me really close to him without needing that sort of like physical, like, hug me, good job,
Hmm.
it's like, okay, it's like having that mutual understanding, and on more of like a silent level.
Yeah.
And but like up here, I wouldn't say touch is the issue, because I didn't tend to do that much before anyways. um it was really more just having somebody that I can share experiences with.
Yeah.
And that was really mainly my dad when it came to concerts. And like my mom and I would like go out for like food stuff, and my dad would too. Like my dad has always been super supportive of any interest I've had, and it's been very helpful. And then moving up here and not having that sort, like right by me, like okay, hey, let's go do something. It's really just me being like, okay, what is there to do?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the shared experience that you have is some NPC circle jerk party where there's like nothing meaningful that happens for anyone.
Hmm.
And I imagine if it's a party, maybe people are drinking and getting high and stuff like that too. So that's kind of like how people alleviate, instead of a shared experience, you're sort of doing this, right? You're
Yeah.
suppressing the boredom with substances.
Hmm.
Is that fair or is that
Yes.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me about, what's your marijuana use like now? How do you feel about it? How does it make you feel?
Um, I would say it's like, um beforehand, it's like, okay, I'm bored. I'm gonna like watch a movie, watch some videos. It's like, you know what? Why not get high while I do it, just to see if it enhances it a little bit. Um, but usually it's like I'll be distracted watching something else, and then something I don't want to think about just pops out of nowhere, and it's like, okay, cool. Now it's ruined.
And this is what happens when you get high?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
Um, yeah, like I think a day or two ago, I was just watching a movie, and then like the memory pops into my head of, hey, remember that girl that left you purely because you weren't like physically close enough? Yeah. You didn't get a fair chance. It's like that sort of echo chamber type stuff where it's like, okay, something I thought years ago comes back. Cause like I had like not thought about that sort of stuff for years. And then it's like, hey, remember when that happened? Remember how you
And
felt?
this happens more when you get high now?
Yes.
And you still get high every day?
Yeah.
Why?
I guess it's really uh to kind of have that sort of, uh, I don't know how to like say it. Um it is it's almost like it's like, okay, here's something that can be a constant. Here's something that can be always in the background, or something. It's it it's some sort of consistency.
Almost like a safety net.
Yes.
Hmm. And what does
It's
it
like,
consistently give you?
um well, I like when it first starts happening, and then but like it so like if I'm high, or if I'm getting high, and I'm like playing a stupid game with some friends, for that like first bit of me being high, it's like okay, cool, I'm having fun. I'm just hanging out with my friends. Then as things do, eventually you stop playing the game, and then I sit down and it's just me alone with my thoughts. And then and then once I realize that it's just me, it just kind of starts to derail.
So it sounds like it's a ticket to fun, but like at some point you get off the train,
Yes.
and then you're just left with your own thoughts. And how long does that linger? Like how long does it take you to sober up?
It depends on what I do. I mainly vape weed because I don't really like when I walk near a wall being able to smell weed on myself. Um, so I switched to vape pens, and it it tends to last. Depending on the strength that I get, it's anywhere from like maybe an hour and a half, sometimes 2, 3, or if I just keep going, it can be all day.
And how often does that happen where you keep going?
Um, I would say that that's usually more on weekends. That's probably more Saturdays, Sundays. It'll be like okay, I don't have any plans today, and it's like okay, I don't have any plans. I don't have $100 to go out and get drinks. I'm gonna sit here. I'm gonna smoke, and it's gonna end up doing that all day. It's like just like the thought of having something to do, kinda, compared to like, oh, I have nothing to do.
And what do you think about marijuana use now?
Um, it's like I understand more of it. Like I used to surprisingly be like it's like I never cared if somebody did it. It was more of okay, you do this, cool. Just like don't do it around me. It was kind of I almost had like a little bit of an aversion to it. But then once I started doing it, it's like uh, whatever. It's another thing.
And and so what do you think about your use now?
My use, I wouldn't say that it is problematic or like interfering in life itself. It is more of it has put me into emotional states that I didn't want to be in. Like like I can still function perfectly fine. It hasn't caused me to slip anything in school or lose any like friendships or anything. It hasn't interfered with life as much as it has brought to light things I didn't want.
What do you mean by that? What has it brought to light?
Well, it's those feelings when like negative experiences or thoughts kind of come back. It's like, okay, I didn't want to think about that again.
Is bringing to
Thanks,
light a
brain.
good thing?
Um, I mean, it is sometimes it's like, oh, I'm thinking about this thing, and now I understand it a little bit more now that I've really thought about it. But sometimes it's like I'll think about something that it's like, okay, I still don't understand it, and it still confuses me. And it's really just like I think it's the whole thing of not knowing and ambiguity about things that just kind of it irks me in a way. It's like okay, I don't know about this thing, therefore I'm going to be cautious, and I don't like it.
I'm falling behind a little bit. What do you mean by ambiguity?
Um, it's like if I think back and it's like okay, say so like with that when I was talking about that last like breakup thing and like the echo chamber type thing, um, it's like okay, I still don't understand what was wrong with me or what went wrong, and I'm trying to think about that, and it's just confusing me, and it's like okay,
Got it.
I don't understand it, I don't have all the information,
So
and then that makes me it's like okay, cool, and it's like okay, I don't like it anymore.
got it. So it sounds like your mind will kind of like churn up these old things, but I'm not getting the sense that you get resolution. But maybe
Yes,
sometimes you get progress when you're this way or no?
sometimes, yes.
So I'm hearing that it doesn't cause problems in your life.
Yes, it like it hasn't impaired my function for anything.
Okay.
It's like
But what
it's like I still work perfectly fine, I still go to school perfectly fine.
how do you feel about using it?
um I feel like um uh I I don't know if I really know how I feel about it. And that's another thing. It's like okay, keep doing it. It's almost like, okay, I had fun these times. Let's see if it's fun this time. Let's and like I don't know if I know how to say how I think about it, to be completely
Okay.
honest.
Yeah. So I'm getting the sense that maybe that's ambiguous too.
Hmm. But it's like sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, but
What do you think I think about your marijuana use?
um I can't I'm not super good at reading when it comes to like what people are thinking generally. And it's like it's like there's reading a room, which is like kind of like I learned reading the room from my dad when it came to like cracking jokes and stuff. But like how to read how somebody's thinking and infer, it's something that I was never really good at. I was never really able to kind of like okay, I think this person is is thinking this about me. Like I never really got that sort of train of thought.
Okay.
It's like it's like unless it's obvious, I won't really be able to tell.
And if I made a judgment either way, if I said, yeah, I think it's fine, or
Hmm.
if I just made some kind of judgment, or I said, yeah, I think it's a problem,
Hmm.
what would that, how would you feel about that?
I mean, it would give me somebody else's insight into it, and that to me is like it. Other people's insight is useful to me. It's like it's like okay, I don't know how I feel about these things. Let me ask somebody else
Okay.
and see kind of what the general feeling is. Maybe get some more information and then work from there.
And when was the last, like, what is the longest period? This is going to be kind of a weird question, but it, recently, what is the longest amount of time you have gone without using?
4 or 5 days.
And when was the last time you went 4 or 5 days without using?
Last week, 2 weeks ago.
And how do you feel when you're doing that?
I mean, it's it's not like a hard thing to do. It's just it's like man, if it's like I'm so bored. If I got high, I could figure out what to do. Or if or it's like if I got high, maybe what I'm doing would be just a little bit more entertaining.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me, Rogan?
Not that I can generally think of at the moment. I don't really have any direct questions, or at least
Okay.
any that I've thought through.
Okay. Totally fine. Is there anything that you want to share or talk about that we haven't covered?
Um, I like I don't know if if this is something we touched on already with like that sort of like motivation thing, but it kind of feels like I burnt out in high school a little bit. Like after my freshman and sophomore year, I was doing as many AP classes and stuff I could. And, burnt out after that, and just kind of started like slipping a little bit on those classes, and then eventually dropping those classes and getting into the regular classes. And then that's like I think that's kind of something that's happening again. Is I'm kind of burning out again because it's like I've got lectures for 5 6 hours, and then I've got 6 7 8 6 6 or 7 hours of labs afterwards, and then I come home, eat, go to sleep, repeat the next day.
Okay. And so it sounds like you're feeling pretty burnt out.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like it's like I feel like I need a break from doing things, but doing nothing is is
Not a break.
is yes.
Okay. So you
Yeah,
kind of you're
doing nothing
burning.
feels like a chore.
Well said, man. You should write lyrics, bro. We haven't talked about that.
I've I've tried. They've never been good. And anytime I would say it out loud, I'm like, nope.
Yeah. So I can see that. I can see why your lyrics. I think there's good lyrics within you, but I totally buy that you can't pull them out yet. Because you've got nuggets of stuff that, I mean, is quite profound. Like, I think it's like you'll capture a lot, right? Where you said something like recovery. I don't know exactly what you just said. I thought was quite profound. It was like, you're like, well, I'm burning out, but
Doing nothing feels
recovering,
like a chore.
recovering from burning out, resting feels like a chore. And then what do you do? Because it's kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. And even if you use marijuana to kind of recover some, it doesn't seem to have the recovery effect that you're really looking for or need. And so you're kind of stuck between like a rock and a hard place.
It's like it's like doing nothing. It's like, okay, if I'm doing nothing, I'm contributing nothing. And it's like nothing is changing. Everything's just gonna stay the exact same. And
Okay.
and it's like okay, if I don't do anything, then what is my purpose?
Right. Okay. I get that. Um, do you play a lot of music nowadays?
I tend to at least try to play for at least a few hours a day.
And what's that like?
Uh, well, sometimes I'm high, sometimes I'm not. It really just depends on the day. When if it's like a weekend or I had nothing to do in the morning and I'm playing in the morning, I'm not high because I tend to have a general rule of before like 2 or 3 o'clock, I don't touch it. Um, but it's like when I'm sober, it's like, okay, I'm gonna sit here, I'm gonna learn this song, I'm listening to it, I'm gonna uh work on it, and then when I'm high, it's more okay, let's see if I can get the feel of the song, more getting into it, and it's really just like, okay, what song do I want to play now? I move on. It's like, okay, I want to play this.
Okay, got it. So it sounds like you still play a fair amount of music, whether high or not.
Yes.
Okay. Can I think for a second?
Yeah.
I'm going to try to stitch some things together, and I'm going to ask you like a couple questions and try to like lay stuff out. So I'm going to go grab my iPad if that's cool.
Okay. Yeah.
And so we'll do a quick share stream.
All right.
And then I'll share some thoughts with you if that's okay.
All right.
All right.
Alrighty.
Give me a second to think. Okay,
right.
and then I'll screen share and we'll write.
All right.
You okay?
Yeah.
Getting nervous again?
It's less of getting nervous again. It's you know, I start thinking like, okay, I almost start anticipating.
What are you anticipating?
I don't know. That's the thing. It's like okay, what's gonna happen?
I'm not too sure. I'm sort of figuring it out myself. So I'm gonna. I just got to do a couple of. So I think we're not gonna be able to see you for a hot second. Okay, just while
Okay.
but we are gonna screen share with you so that you can see. Do you see the black screen?
Yes.
And then I wonder if. Oh, no, I'm trying to figure out how to. Okay, and then we're gonna go over here. Okay, so we're not gonna be able to see you, but can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. So let's start with a couple of basics.
All right.
So I'm hearing from you that marijuana use is not causing problems. Is that
Yes.
fair? So
Yes.
let's start by understanding clinical perspectives. So when we think about clinical addiction, what we think about is impairment of function. So you can look at all substances or all addictions, and basically, like in psychiatry, what we do is if it is messing with your life, if it is negatively impacting you in some significant way, that's what we sort of think about as an addiction. Now, I'm hearing that it's not impairing your function, but I also haven't assessed you clinically for it. So when we do clinical assessments on addiction, we'll sort of talk about, like we'll ask people like, hey, is it causing problems in school? Is it causing problems with your relationships? Is it causing problems with your parents? Is it altering your mood? Is it altering your physical health? There's all kinds of things. Do you experience withdrawal? There's all kinds of features that we will assess. That's not really what this conversation is about. And I really actually appreciate that. And the first thing that I want to say, Rogan, is thank you very much for having this conversation. Because when I think about people who use marijuana, let's say this is the portion that maybe is clinically addicted. This is the portion that is totally okay with their usage. But I would say the majority of people are actually like you, and this is the part that we never talk about. It's like, how is it actually affecting your life? Like, is it, even if it's not a huge problem, should you use, should you not use? Is it good? Is it bad? Like, the truth is that 80% of people are just like you and probably somewhere in the middle. And these are the people that, we really need to talk to, because I think there's a lot going on in the trajectory of your life that is being affected by marijuana. But since these people are not clinically addicted, and maybe you are, who knows, like all of the attention that we give people is the people over here, right? And sometimes we get into beef with people over here and we argue with them. But this is actually this is the majority of where the people who use marijuana live. And this is the majority of where the impact in your life is. And it's not addiction. Then the answer is simple, but here's a huge question mark. So I'd like to talk to you about this. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to start off with a bias, which is that I think that this is a problem. So I'm stating that, straight up. Like I said, I don't know. I have no idea if you're addicted or not, but I see problems in the trajectory of your life, and I'm laying that out front and center so that I could be wrong. So you can disagree with that judgment, but everything that I'm saying is going to be colored through that lens.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
How do you feel about me saying this?
It gives me a perspective that I really only heard from those those commercials on TV, and then the Dare pledge, but whenever I talk to people, they're not nobody's nobody's well, most people are like, hey, yeah, you can do it,
Yeah,
it's you.
And that's why I sort of lay that out, right? So I'm not saying that marijuana is bad.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of scientific evidence.
It's problematic for me.
Yeah, so I'm seeing problems that in your life that I believe are influenced by marijuana. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So let's understand something about marijuana.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the basic issue that I see is that I believe it is stunting your growth. Now, this is important to understand because it doesn't mean that it is it's not lighting something on fire. It seems to me like marijuana is leading to you stalling some in the trajectory of your life, which is sort of what we kind of know from a neuroscience perspective. And we'll talk about how it is. We'll talk about some of the data really towards the end about why I think it's like probably bad from a medical perspective, but forget about that for now. This is the thing that I am the most concerned about for you. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I'm not saying it is true. I'm not saying that it is stunting your growth. It's that when I listen to your story, I see yellow flags about it stalling. Like you feel like you're stalling to me.
Okay.
Does that resonate with you?
It's like a little bit. It's like I feel like I'm not ready to move on to move, right? Like I'm not ready to make these big life choices. But it's like, I'm going through with it. I'm doing it.
Yep.
It's it's almost mentally stunting, but I'm still doing it.
Yep. That's exactly what I completely agree 100%. Right. So what I think it's actually interfering with is your progression towards readiness, not the actual action or not inaction. So like, I'm with you that you're not ready, but that's where I think the problem is. And that's where I think it's contributing. So I think we're sort of on the same page, but let me lay this out. And then ultimately you have to decide whether this is right or wrong. And also this isn't so much about you. This is about people in your situation who use marijuana. Let's understand how it affects things generally. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'm going to sort of generalize your pattern. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. It's for everybody who needs it.
Right. So let's start off. When someone starts using marijuana, the first thing is that it's fun. So what marijuana does is it allows us to extract more pleasure from a given activity. When you get high, do you get the munchies, Rogan?
I used to. I started eating a lot. And I've generally like it's like, okay, I want to eat right now, but I'm not going to.
Sure, but how does food taste when you're high?
Oh, it always tastes amazing.
Right?
Oh, it's always so fun.
And so that's what it does. Like, so in life we have all these experiences like eating things and listening to music, and other usually like physical sensations will feel like looking at things like looking at a tree branch like you mentioned. So this is how it starts out. Being fun. And then what starts to happen is that after a while, this is a very consistent pattern. Then what the cool thing is that if anything can be more fun on marijuana, what that means is that boring activities can turn into fun activities. Like you said you were staring at a tree branch for a while, right? And like that's super cool. So even simple things like eating food and existing and having conversations, there are like low dopaminergic activities, like conversations, nature, these like low dopaminergic activities. And we as a society are starting to struggle because as our brains get more and more dopamine, our tolerance for low dopaminergic activities goes down. And so marijuana almost fixes this problem. Because for some people will say like, yeah, video games are more fun when I play, when I get high. But if you look at how much, so a video game will move from a 7 to a 9 in terms of enjoyment, but sitting outside will move from a 2 to a 9. And so what happens in our dopaminergic society is that this becomes harder and harder to do. And now marijuana makes it easier to do things that are not dopaminergic. And so now we have this choice of like, we're kind of dopaminergically dependent, but like now marijuana lets us do other stuff, like be with nature, eat things. Then something tricky happens because once boring activities become fun with marijuana, then what starts happening is marijuana starts being used to alleviate boredom. Right? Because like anything becomes like, what am I going to do today? Well, I don't have $100 to go out and drink. I don't have anything else to do. So I might as well get high. And so what kind of happens is that like you're kind of fast forwarding through a day when you're high. Does that make sense? There's also like impairments in time perception and stuff like that. So instead of being bored a whole weekend where you've got nothing to do, you can get high, and then before you know it, the weekend's kind of over, and like you didn't get bored. You kind of had fun. You really enjoyed things moment to moment. You were in the present moment, which marijuana also helps with. But now we've transitioned from it being straight fun to alleviating boredom and making boredom tolerable. But as we start to use marijuana to make boredom tolerable, we become inherently incapable of tolerating boredom. Now, this becomes a real problem, and maybe I'll get to that later. But it's like our resistance to boredom kind of goes down. Mm-hmm. And then what we end up doing is we develop some amount of tolerance, which is, it sounds like what you've started to develop. And now what we end up doing is using marijuana to keep boredom at bay. And even then, even if we sort of listen to you, it sounds like you're not having a whole lot of fun anymore. And so like you used to have like a 9, you know, it used to make things like a 9, but now like marijuana is barely keeping things at a 4 to 5. And without it, we're like kind of dropping down to a 2. And now you're kind of swimming around here. How does that sound?
Yep.
Right? And so now it's like, well, we originally did this to turn a 7 into or really a 2 into a 9. We used to get a +7 for marijuana. And over here, we start to get like maybe a +4. And now it's like at this point, when this happens, now we have a chronic debuff of like a -5. And then now we use marijuana to get a +4, but we're at -5, chronic debuff, and then +4. And so our net is -1. And this is kind of where I see you. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
It makes a lot of sense.
Okay. So then there are a couple of other angles here. So this is why I think that like if you have an extended period of sobriety where you reduce your physiologic tolerance, what'll happen is what we really want to do is cleanse this debuff. And this is what sobriety gets you. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that it's like, you know, the rest of the stuff is, you can still enjoy it. Like that's fine. Yeah. But what I notice with a lot of people who use marijuana somewhat chronically is they enter into this like chronic debuff state. And then you kind of have to use it just to keep stuff at bay. That's one angle. So the second angle that I think is pretty concerning is if you look at human development, you're like in a very like important phase of your life, right? So you're talking about, and this is true of all kids who are kind of your age, right? You're moving away from home. And this is hard. So you're feeling lonely, isolated, without a safety net. These are negative emotions. Without marijuana, what do you think happens to these feelings?
They're still there.
And what do they do? Do you know? How do they affect you?
They just kind of sit there in the back of my head. It's like they're not prominent, but they don't really go away at all.
Okay, right.
They're just kind of like almost like a nuisance in the back of my head.
They're a nuisance in the back of your head. This is what is stunting your growth, is that they are in the back of your head, not in the front of your head. So in a normal human being, and you're not abnormal, but if we remove substances, something that's very important to understand, our negative emotions are our most powerful motivators. And this is why negative emotions exist. Negative emotions aren't a bug, they're a feature, and they're conserved amongst the entire human race and even outside of the human species. Like dogs have negative emotions, like mammals have negative emotions. And why is that? So when we have a negative emotion, it is a signal to other parts of your brain. So if you look at your hippocampus, which is where we learn from our mistakes, and we start to create new behaviors, all in the hippocampus. The hippocampus is very, very tightly connected to our negative emotional circuitry. So if you look at why do people with addictions, and I'm not saying you have an addiction, we're talking generally here.
Yeah.
Why don't people with addictions learn from their mistakes? We see this a lot with video game addiction as well. It's because in order to learn from your mistake, that negative emotional circuitry has to activate and influence your learning circuitry. It has to turn on your learning circuitry. And then you will learn your lesson. So normally what happens with a 19-year-old who goes to college, right? This is developmentally appropriate. Everybody feels lonely and isolated. In my case, I played a ton of video games and so pushed that loneliness and isolation to the back of my mind. It came roaring back every night when I went to sleep. And then I would suppress it with video games. And then I would play so many video games to where when I hit the pillow, I would pass out. I would stay up till like 6 a.m. in the morning. I would play games until I was so exhausted that I knew I would pass out the second my head hit the pillow. So I never gave a chance for these negative emotions to come forward. Now, when you push these to the back, you don't actually do anything about them, right? So you kind of continue existing. When these emotions are front and center, you go down the route of being a PC. You start to make changes in your life. They become they hurt you so much that it prompts you to change. It prompts you to do something different. When we push them towards the back, we move down the route of becoming an NPC. And we start to it starts to negatively impact our motivation. And why does it negatively impact our motivation? We may think that negative emotions, it's tricky. It's not just like one way. Where negative emotions can kill our motivation, they can also be fuel for our motivation. Right? So if you sort of think about like Metallica, right? And Nothing Else Matters and One, like, what do you think is the emotional content of those songs? Is it positive or negative?
Negative.
Is it purely negative?
At least one. One is pretty negative. Nothing Else Matters is it like at least in those words itself and with that with that, you know, being the title and how many times it's said it, like it's almost a bit of positive, because, you know, it's like, hey, nothing else matters. Like, it's like, this matters, nothing else does. Like, focus on this.
Right. So I would say that if you really look at Nothing Else Matters, there's a transmutation of negative emotion into like focus. Right? Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so like, this is the thing that you're missing. This is what I'm worried about. I actually don't know if you're missing this, but this is what concerns me hearing your story. And this is the primary problem for like all of these people that I've worked with anyway. And this is not just as a clinician. This is like, you know, nephews of mine and things like that who start to get high. And what I tend to see is that they push their negative emotions away. And then like they start to stall in terms of motivation because they're not like learning or growing from that negative emotion. They're not taking that loneliness and isolation, and they're not using that energy to really reach out. So if we think about what is the feeling of loneliness, like anytime our body needs something, it punishes us until we go get it. Hunger is not pleasant. Thirst is not pleasant. Why is that? It creates a negative experience to prompt action. That's why hunger is so painful. And the hungrier we get, the more painful it is, and the more it pushes us to eat. Now, what happens with loneliness is like, that's our way of saying, hey, you no longer have your family safety net. We need other people. We need to have powerful shared experiences with other human beings. And as a 19-year-old, your job in life is to form bonds that will last you after your parents go away. Right? Because they're not going to be around forever. And so now is the time that you start to get independence. You feel that loneliness, and you use that loneliness as fuel to connect with other people who are lonely. And then you have shared experiences because you all connect, and you fucking fall in love, and you find your best bros for the rest of your life that are not your family. But the problem is that this is going into the background, which is exactly what marijuana does, right? It makes negative emotions go to the background. Now, we're running into a couple of other problems. The first is that these negative emotions can go into the background, but they're also piling up. And at some point, the suppressive power of marijuana is no longer sufficient. And I think that's what we're kind of seeing potentially with you, which is that even when you get high, like as long as your mind is occupied, that's fine. But this chronic like loneliness that has been building up slowly, and I love the way that you said it, there's no shared experience. It's like this vapid, shallow NPC recycled dialogue bullshit at a party, right?
Yeah.
And so as this starts to pile up, it starts to break through. And now the problem is like, so marijuana can, let's say this is your negative emotional state. And if we look at marijuana, what marijuana does, let's say here's your negative emotions. What marijuana does is gives you a -5, which is a good thing, right? So it lowers it, and so it effectively becomes, let's say, a 1. But the problem is, unless you actually emotionally process, this is going to continue building, and at some point the -5 isn't sufficient. So even with a -5, we're still sitting at 6. And just like you kind of said, like you didn't really know how to emotionally process, and I'm noticing that like music is really important. Like I don't think it's a coincidence that you snapped it with being bullied in the 5th grade, and then you discovered Metallica and all that rage and negative emotion, which resonated with you in like the 7th grade.
Yeah.
Right? Because it speaks to you, and that's how you actually heal it or channel it or whatever.
It's almost like that anger and aggression was the only way I understood emotion.
Yeah, right? And so now what's happening is as you push emotion to the background, you are no longer understanding emotion. It's just leaking in, but you don't know like how to deal with it. You don't know how to articulate it. You don't know how to channel it. The last thing that I want to share with you is I've noticed this as well, where if we kind of think about this piece, right? If we go back here, we extract more pleasure from life when we use marijuana. So life is like an orange. Let me see if I can find an orange color. Oh, God. Where's orange? There's no orange. What the? Okay, I guess we're going to get an off-color yellow.
Lemons.
So life is like a lemon. And so normally, like, we can squeeze, like, some amount of juice out of the lemon. And then if we use marijuana, we, like, double it. But at some point, like we've squeezed all of the juice out, and then additional marijuana, like the lemon has run dry. And so marijuana can give us more pleasure from food, and it can give us more pleasure from music, but like it can't ever put you into that 12-hour concert where you were standing with your dad. Right? If we really think about the transformative experiences, marijuana can't give you that. And the problem is we get stuck like squeezing this same old orange. And so there's another orange over here, which is the orange of life experience. Which sure, marijuana can if we're getting, let's say, 3 drops out of this, even if we get high when we do this, we can maybe get a couple more drops or maybe even 4. But like what it does is it takes where we are and it allows us to extract more out of it instead of actually moving us forward to these bigger lemons in life that we can get. Like they just have way more juice because you've squeezed all this shit dry, dude. And that's what I get the sense of is like when you use marijuana, there's nothing left to squeeze. But now that you've squeezed this orange dry or lemon, so now it's like it's dry, right? So it's all shriveled and shit. And so now when you try to squeeze it normally, all you get is 1 drop. And so if you get high, maybe you can get a second drop out of it. But we're still sitting at 2 drops. Whereas if you like move forward in your life and let's say you engage in a healthy romantic relationship or you find a fulfilling job or you join a band or something like that, then we're going to get a whole bigger thing that's going to like make you enjoy yourself so much more. Following me?
Yeah.
Okay. And now let's talk about the neuroscience. So from a medical standpoint, like I do not recommend marijuana use. Like all this stuff is true, right? And I know that people are going to use it. But from a medical standpoint, let's understand a couple of things. The first is that it's not good for the developing brain. Now I'm going to go into the dare talk, okay? I'm not trying to be judgmental. I'm just trying to share this information with you.
Yeah.
So the problem is that when your brain is growing right now, and I can actually we can go back to, I'm going to stop screen sharing, okay?
Okay.
So we can just go, because I don't think we, Donk Chong. Okay. So now I'm just going to talk to you about the medical piece. So your brain is developing. And one thing that we know about the developing brains is anything that you tamper with will get like wired in that way. So it's kind of like wet cement, where if I put a handprint in there, that handprint is going to be there. Now, you tell me that your function is not impaired from marijuana, totally fine. And that's where I think a lot of people get tripped up, because they think that marijuana makes them stupider. There's some studies that show that in the worst case scenario, you can lose about 8 IQ points. But generally speaking, that those studies have not been consistent. So a lot of studies show that it doesn't affect your IQ. But what marijuana does affect is your motivational circuitry. This we kind of know like pretty well. And what it does is it affects your habit circuitry and your motivational circuitry. And literally, like, so the way that our brain forms habits is actually not through dopamine, is through the endocannabinoid system. So when our brain has a habit, the primary neurotransmitter that governs that habit being run is a cannabinoid. So what I've noticed is that people who start using marijuana fall into a habit of it, and they can't, it's like hard to break the habit. And why is that? It's because it's literally tampering with your habit circuitry, like in a very direct way. We're not talking about behavioral reinforcement or dopamine or anything like that. It's like literally like, let's say I have like, you know, I have ink that I'm trying to draw something with, and like it's tampering with the ink itself. So what we sort of know is that when people use marijuana and their brains are still developing, those people tend to do worse in life. And what I tend to see the most of is like problems with motivation. So they start to stall. So you're like 19 years old, you're about to, you graduated, you're basically graduating, right? And the next couple of years are like really important for you. Like whether you are highly motivated and excited and are forming connections and having like meaningful experiences, that's going to shape your brain. It's going to shape the person that you become. And what I'm sort of noticing is that marijuana is like keeping boredom at bay, but as long as you're keeping boredom at bay, you're not like moving towards anything. And that's the thing that worries me the most. Is there's a lot of data that shows that it's basically unhealthy. And so this is kind of where I am as I listen to you. I'm not judging you for using it. I'm not saying that it's like you're fucked up and you're an addict and you need to stop tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, this is for the 80% of people. And this is why marijuana is like so hard to figure out, right? Because it's not like, you know that there are people out there who are addicts and you're not them. It's not fucking up your life. But like, and it's definitely doing something for you, right? It makes like boredom more fun. It like alleviates some of that loneliness. It like allows you to enjoy like your day to day. There's a lot of benefits to it. And so do I quit? Do I not quit? Do I need to quit? Do I need to cut back? I think this is the lens that I would encourage people to really think about. It's like, what is it doing to the way that, how is it shaping your trajectory? And what I tend to see a lot of is intolerance to boredom, some kind of like psychological dependence. And it's not that one weekend, like, you know, you can use it for a weekend, not that big of a deal. But it's like when every weekend you're just kind of getting high and like aren't doing anything, like over the course of 2 months, you haven't moved forward at all. And so what I really notice is that it stalls people over time. Thoughts, questions?
When you were talking about like the boredom and then like the like progress, it's almost like I'm too busy fighting a losing battle to just run away.
Yes, fucking A, you should definitely write lyrics, bro. Absolutely. It's so well said. Like, yeah, fucking brilliant. Summarizes it. Yeah, you're so busy fighting a losing battle that you're not even like, you don't even need to win it. You can just leave the battlefield and go on and live your fucking life. Well said.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think, by the way, writing lyrics for you is just an exercise in doing whatever it is that you just did.
Okay.
I don't know how, but I imagine that your problem with writing lyrics is insufficient inputs. So I think as you get more material in, your ability to synthesize is excellent, Rogan. Really solid.
Thank you.
Other thoughts, questions?
Not in my head at the moment, no.
Cool.
Yeah. It's been like really nice to actually be able to talk about this stuff though. And like I'm hoping that, you know, it kind of helps other people who maybe, you know, like, because like the main reason I had never, you know, reached out to anybody for like, any mental health reasons, like I didn't even, like, I don't even reach out to my parents for it, because it's like, you know, I I don't know what the reaction is going to be. I don't know what other people are going to think when I ask for help. It's like, am I going to be seen as weak? You know, is that going to be used against me? You know, like I never reached out just purely because, it's like I feared that something negative would come from it. Just because, it was negative feelings of vulnerability, and that's something that, growing up, it's like you're told, it's like um like, if you feel this way, don't don't be vulnerable, be strong, be stoic.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think there are other angles to this too, which we haven't really gotten into. But I've been doing a lot of reading on male mental health recently, and I think there's also there's a reason why the majority of people who struggle with marijuana are men, and I think that a big part of it is like a lot of the stuff that you said, which is that so you're growing up and you're like not allowed to express negative emotion, you're not allowed to process negative emotion. People manipulate you and you don't even know how to advocate for yourself. And so then what happens is like as you lose control of emotion, the world punishes you for it. And so then you develop a fear of emotion. Emotion becomes a negative thing to be avoided at all costs. Mm-hmm. And then you find yourself in a situation that is inducing a negative emotion. Like you move out of the country and you're isolated and you're alone and you have no safety net. But your whole life you've been taught to fear emotion, and that emotion has gotten like out of control. No one's going to teach you, right? Because they're going to tell you to man up and be quiet, and you got to learn how to handle it. You got to learn, right? The onus is on you. We're not going to teach you, by the way. You got to learn. You got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right? And so we have a very negative relationship. And then what happens is something comes along like marijuana. And if you look at the studies, we notice that men especially are more prone to substance use than women are. And I think it has to do with our relationship with our emotions and how we're actually actively punished for even engaging in them or expressing them or even reaching out for help. And then who are you going to reach out with? You're going to reach out to a bro, right? And then that guy has gone through the same shit you've gone through. They don't know what to do with that. Yeah. So then they're going to make a dick joke, and then y'all laugh about it, and then you never talk about it again. And then along comes marijuana, which makes you feel normal. Now you get to live life the way that everybody else appears to be living life. You get to go to a party and you get to have fun. You get to hang out with people and you get to have a conversation. And then, but the problem is that those emotions keep piling up, and then like you don't ever actually like make progress, right? Because you're fighting this losing battle, which is like, so you're not fighting the battle that you should be, the one that you can actually win and the one that has the prize worth winning. So I see a lot of like, this is a story I hear a lot from men. And it's not that women can't go through this story as well. Basically, for all addictions, they take away some element of pain. But I do think there's epidemiologically, men are more people are addicted who are men than women. And I think there's a reason for that. It may be biological, could be testosterone and scrotums, but I think it has something to do with this.
And one thing with people fear fearing emotion. And it's something that is also like I've seen in media sometimes, like Star Wars. Like, sure, it's negative emotion. They're the bad guys. They're not afraid to get angry, or like be sad, or let their emotions make decisions. But they're seen as the bad guys, and the ones who are stoic and don't follow the rule of law and logic and no emotional motivation behind it. But and it's like okay, if you use your emotions, you're the bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about Star Wars specifically, but there's this idea that giving in to your hate makes you join the dark side. And like, I think the reason that story it resonates is because when you let your anger take control of you, you got punished. But I think the big irony is that, I think in real life, when I've helped people channel their anger and really get in touch with it, that's when they actually join the light side. Like when I work with sociopaths who become good people, it's not teaching them compassion. Some of them are not neuroscientifically really even capable of it. I'm still hopeful. But what it's really about is like developing a healthy relationship with their negative emotions and recognizing some of this stuff. Like negative emotion is actually the most powerful source of motivation. And when we run away from it, when we fear it, when we suppress it, we're actually hamstringing ourselves in terms of our capacity to like drive forward and get through other stuff. Because the other thing that we sometimes don't realize is that negative emotion is the best way to overcome other negative emotion. You know, I'm socially anxious. What makes me finally leave the house? Being so lonely. Love and compassion is never going to conquer social anxiety. I mean, that's not true. It can't. But what will conquer anger is like what will conquer fear is anger. And I don't think we really understand that a lot of people that I work with are stuck between two negative emotions, and they try to suppress everything instead of channeling one to overcome the other. Other thoughts, questions?
Yeah, like with like channeling one emotion to take control of another, it's like, especially when it comes to like if you want to use anger just like to suppress fear or something, it's almost like, you know, it's like, okay, I don't it's like I can use this, but if I do, are there going to be any, you know, negative any repercussions that come from it, like am I going to do something that I never, you know, meant to do, and you know it fucks something up.
Absolutely, man. Because I think a lot of dealing with negative emotions is like playing with fire, where fire is really powerful. But especially if we go back to like, you know, being bullied on the playground and snapping, you learned very clearly that like losing control of your emotions is bad, but no one ever taught you how to control it in the first place. So what you end up with is no one taught you fire safety, and you burned a house down. And then what are you going to conclude? You're going to conclude that I should never play with fire. Fire should be avoided at all costs. And then you're losing out on a lot of what's like really useful in life, right?
It's like you're learning the lesson, but you're not learning why or how.
Yeah, I think you're learning a lesson, and then you're closing the book, and you're never moving on to chapter 2. Which is that, yes, you should be cautious around anger. It can have negative consequences, but that's not the end of the story. We quit too early, really.
Nobody reads past the but.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything else in my head right now.
Yeah, that's good. That's how we know we're at a natural stopping point. I don't have anything else in my head either. So I just want to say thank you very much, Rogan, for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah.
For what it's worth, I think you strike me as like an incredibly strong person. I don't know if you view yourself that way, but
I mean, in some ways I believe I am. In other ways, it's like, you know, I still feel like I'm that little kid, just sitting there.
I think that little kid is within you somewhere for sure. And being strong doesn't mean getting rid of the little kid. It means actually giving that kid a space to exist within you, and not trying to kick it out. But I mean, there's just so much, like, you know, you've overcome a lot. I think you've really found something that you truly love, which is like something that a lot of people struggle with. And I think thankfully, I think if you started getting high at the age of 12 or 13, I don't think you would be as passionate about music as you are today. Because the other thing that we don't really appreciate about marijuana is that, you know, I don't know if this makes sense, but when you get high and you have a really deep experience, the experience doesn't last when you sober up. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it lingers just where you're high. So like if you want it again, you're gonna have to.
Exactly. So the problem is that when we normally live through life, like any experience that we have or any learning or revelation that we have sticks with us. So if there's someone who's sober over time, they're growing over time. The problem is any growth or ideas that you have when you're high don't make sense in the light of day. You don't actually like grow sustainably over time, even though it feels like you kind of temporarily shoot up to a high place. But then when you come back down, you're back where you started. Whereas normal life, like you're kind of like growing over time. But I think it's, you know, so that I would recommend, I do feel confident in sort of recommending it, the least that you sort of think about this. By all means, think about seeing a mental health professional. And I would encourage anyone who's out there who's using a substance, whether it's caffeine or marijuana or alcohol or anything, to take a break for like 3 to 6 months and to see how you feel and what your day-to-day life is like, right? So I think you owe it to yourself to like try to take a break. And the tricky thing there is that you may find that when you start to take a break, things get way harder because you've got all that negative emotion piling up. But if you kind of ride it out, like you don't even need to do anything different. You just need to persevere, and then it'll start to, your brain will start to like naturally metabolize it. But that can be hard.
That's kind of how like because like when I was in high school, like freshman sophomore year, I was very addicted to video games. It was and then I got in trouble not related to video games, and then I got grounded for like 2 months. It was just me in my room. It was school, my room, and work.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I noticed you have a Buc-ee's cup. Buc-ee's is great, man.
Yes, I've got the onesie in my dresser over there somewhere.
Oh, a Buc-ee's onesie. I've never seen one of those.
Oh, it's got a tail too.
Interesting.
And it's got a hood with his head on it.
Fascinating. For those of y'all that don't know, Buc-ee's is an awesome gas station chain down in the southern United States.
It's the best gas station.
They have like actually pretty good barbecue, which is bizarre.
It is. And their fudge is really good.
I don't think I've had much of their sweet stuff, but anyway, so Rogan, thank you so much for coming on. I hope today was okay or helpful for you.
Very. I definitely feel better coming out of this than going in.
Okay, awesome, man. And thank you so much for sharing your story. I really love it because, you know, it doesn't sound like you're an addict. And the problem is that when we talk about substance use, we're so focused on the addicts that we don't realize there's a gigantic population of people who are like, I don't know how to feel about this.
It's like, it's like people are focusing on those who've already gone over that slope rather than preventing people from going over that slope.
Yeah. And hopefully we can alter your course a little bit, but who knows, maybe it doesn't even need altering. So good luck to you, man. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Take care, buddy.
Thank you.
Okay. Questions before we wrap up for the day? Do you have data on interactions between marijuana and SSRIs? Yes. So generally speaking, what we know about psychiatric medication and marijuana is that marijuana interferes with the benefits that psychiatric medications give you. So there are some people that can manage it okay and still get a good therapeutic benefit from psychiatric meds, whether they're SSRIs or marijuana or whatever. But generally speaking, my experience as a psychiatrist has been that if you are taking antidepressant or anti-anxiety medication, the marijuana interferes with the effect of that medication. Now, the interesting thing is that's not always the case. Or that's not true for all medications, I should say. So we know, for example, that if you are on opioid medications, using marijuana in some studies has shown that you can actually cut back on your opioid dependence by adding marijuana. But generally speaking, for psychiatric medications, they basically cancel out the effect of something like an SSRI, which is usually what I see clinically. Another way to put it is that when I have patients who are getting high and taking antidepressant medication, if they get sober, their depression improves. Xerox is saying, hey man, my problem with marijuana is that it helped me with starting working out and meditating, but it feels like the negatives start to increase. That's exactly what happens, right? So when we introduce a new substance to our body, until our body develops tolerance, that substance has a large effect. As our body develops tolerance, the effect of that substance goes down. So this is true of negative substances as well, right? So when we sort of think about like even these stories where people would like acclimatize themselves to poison. So small doses of poison I can manage, and then as my body develops tolerance, then the effect of the substance goes down. This is true of good substances as well. Substances that human beings willingly take to create some kind of positive effect. Caffeine, marijuana, alcohol, stimulants. we will develop a tolerance to it, at which point the positives start to disappear because our body is literally thinking about this stuff as a toxin and is trying to get rid of it. So this is what's really interesting, is that if you look at the principle of tolerance, and for example, people who are addicted to opiates, people will develop a tolerance for opiates and they will need to, let's say, use more heroin to get high. The highest risk of overdose from opiates comes when you have a chronic opiate user who then gets sober. So if they were using, let's say, 1 gram of heroin a day and then they become sober and they start using again, they think, okay, what is the dose that works for me? It's 1 gram. But since their body no longer has the physiologic tolerance, they go straight back to 1 gram and it shuts off their lungs. They stop breathing and they'll die. So this principle of tolerance is a huge, very important thing to understand, which is what happens when you chronically use a substance, right? It like helps you start, but then over time it stops working. And now the problem is, instead of learning how to start on your own, your brain has concluded that the best way to start is to depend on a substance. And so now what you've really done is you've lost the chance to level up your skill at starting, which is a huge problem. Questions, was he cool or what? I think he's super cool. Is cortisol motivation a good thing? Stress negativity? Sort of. So there are actually studies on something called... So we talked about how... Okay, let me just take a step back. So one of the things that people don't understand about negative emotions is that negative emotions are the most powerful source of motivation and the most powerful source of learning. So if we look at our brain, what activates our body and mind the most? Negative emotion. So for example, if I'm walking through the woods and I run across a hungry bear, my motivation to act in that moment is going to skyrocket. I'm not going to procrastinate. I'm not going to get distracted. That negative emotion actually unifies my body and my mind and my brain and my nervous system to act all towards one thing, all driven by negative emotion. Second thing about negative emotion is that our learning circuitry is tied to negative emotion. So if we suppress our negative emotion, we do not learn from our mistakes. This is precisely why people who are addicted to something will keep using it and never learn their lesson. Because the part of our brain that learns lessons is impaired when we shut off our negative emotional circuitry. What shuts off our negative emotional circuitry? Substances of abuse, technology, things like that, right? So we're literally shutting off our brain's capacity to learn from our mistakes. Now, what about cortisol? What about stress? Because stress induces some level of negative emotion. Well, it turns out that if you look at the science of stress, there's something called distress, right? Which we sort of, when we say stress, what we really mean is distress, a bad stress. But there's also something called eustress, which is good stress. And what we know about the science of optimal performance and the flow state is that if your cortisol level is too low, if your stress level is completely zero, you will be bored. If your stress level is too high, you will be overwhelmed. If your stress level is right in the middle, you will actually be optimally engaged and will perform the best, right? So when you like 1v1 mid, right? When you 1v1 someone who's trash talking you in a game, hopefully you have that optimal level of stress. You have that fire. You have that, like, I'm gonna show this person. You're not like chill, like, oh my God, I have to put this person in their place. You're not bored, you're activated. And that activation actually brings out the best part of you, your best performance. And so a big part of what people miss out on in life is they try to get rid of negative emotions instead of keeping them in sort of this healthy medium area where they will optimize your learning and optimize your performance. So too little cortisol is bad. Okay. Any advice on quitting marijuana? Yeah, sure. So let's talk about evidence-based techniques to stop marijuana use. So a couple of things. Your environment and peer support is very helpful. So if you hang out with people who get high, chances are you're going to get high. So I would strongly recommend the most important thing you can do to quit marijuana is to start hanging out with people who do not smoke. That in and of itself can be hard, but start trying, right? Second thing is, by all means, engage in medical treatment. So there aren't a lot of medications that we can use that will sort of reduce cravings of marijuana and stuff. We've got stuff for alcohol. We've got stuff for nicotine. We have stuff for opiates. We don't really have great stuff for marijuana. But by all means, get into psychotherapy and start to work on some of the issues that lead you to use marijuana. The third thing to understand about marijuana is we oftentimes use it to enhance experiences and get rid of negative emotions. So as long as that is your only tool to have a fun time and to get rid of your negative emotions, you will continue to get high. So if you want to quit marijuana, what you need is cultivate the ability to have fun while sober. So this is something that literally we have studies on mindfulness, where you can do something like eat with your eyes closed. And if you eat with your eyes closed, you are cultivating the capacity to enjoy the food more. So you have to learn how to enjoy things and be in the present, and meditation is really good. The last thing that you need is an alternate coping mechanism for negative emotions. If your brain defaults to marijuana usage because you have no other way to deal with negative emotions, it's going to be really hard to stop getting high. So you need to start building up emotional coping skills or even emotional processing or something like that, so that when negative emotions arise, you do not need the marijuana. Now, that is a slow going process. So you have to build up that skill and be able to swim without your floaties. Because what marijuana is for your emotions is like a life jacket. And if you kind of think about it, you can't take off the life jacket and immediately know how to swim. You have to learn how to swim, and then you can take off the life jacket. And this is where people really trip up when it comes to marijuana, and especially getting sober, is they think that, okay, I start by getting sober and then I need to build up skills. Whereas what you really need to do is start building up skills and then stop using the substances. So peer support, mental health treatment, learn how to enjoy life, ideally through meditation, and then develop alternate emotional coping skills so that you can manage your emotions. The cool thing is, once you do all of this, once you start enjoying life, once you start being no longer neuroscientifically impaired by a substance, once you've worked through some of your issues in therapy, and once you no longer need to run away from your negative emotions, what you will actually find is you can harness all of that stuff. You can harness your negative emotions towards positivity. Being angry and saying to yourself, this is no longer the life that I want to live. Screw this. I am going to build a better life for myself, right? Channeling that anger is really how you will start to move forward. Okay. So that's all the time we have for today. I see that there's tons of questions. So we've done a marijuana Q&A in the past. It sounds like we need to do another one. Okay. Who do y'all want to raid today? Chat. It was lots of fun streaming 3 days in a row, y'all. What is the next stream topic? I don't know. So I am actually not going to be around. I'm going on vacation for a little while. So I'm not going to be streaming. I'm going to take a break from streaming for a little while. I may still be around. I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll randomly stream. But yeah. So, but who are we rating? Okay. Okay. So okay, so someone's asking me to raid Ligma, so we're going to do that. So we're going to raid Ligma Gamerpot. Which it seems like they have 0 viewers. They're playing Call of Duty. And their name is Ligma Gamerpot. So that's who we're going to raid. Because it seems like they also may enjoy marijuana. So we'll do that. So let's go. All right.